Of Judicial Watch discussing the IG report that was released yesterday on James Comey and the lack of any kind of punishment. He's not being held accountable for anything that he did. We got a message from Lynn. She's a listener, and she said, why isn't the DOJ going after Mr. Richmond? I thought he was a law school professor. I would argue that Richmond should have known better.
He was. Comey has now said that Richmond was acting as his lawyer. Now, Richmond was the man that Comey used to leak one of the memos to the New York Times. He looked at it and then told the Times reporter about it as part of this vendetta to get the special counsel appointed. Richmond's part of the conspiracy. He had declassified information on his system. He should have known that FBI files were not appropriate for him to have, let alone share with anyone in the New York Times. But this is all about getting President Trump, and it's really a mark. It's obviously a black mark on the FBI, because I think there's a lot more here. I think these memos were underclassified. When you look at the report, there was weirdness in how they classified it. They were aware that Comey had the records, and they're like, oh my gosh, these could be all classified. We got to figure out what's classified or not. And who's making those decisions? The FBI gang, that many of whom are now gone. McCabe, Strzok, Lisa Page. Oh boy, we're relying on them to be truthful and accurate about whether they were engaging in a fair-minded process to protect the president's interests in these FBI files.
Mm-hmm. So you see James Comey yesterday responding to this, basically making it seem like it cleared him that the DOJ IG, quote, found no evidence that Comey or his attorneys released any of the classified information contained in any of the memos to members of the media. He goes on to say, I don't need a public apology from those who defamed me, but a quick message with a, sorry we lied about you, would be nice. It almost seems like James Comey's yelling at you, Tom Fitton.
Well, it sounds to me like he's not dealing with reality. He did leak the classified materials to his attorneys / designated leaker, Jesse Richmond. Richmond says, reporters called me because they'd like to hear what my views were on these matters, these legal matters. It's pretty clear they were calling him because he was a cutout for James Comey regularly. That's why Comey gave him permission to talk to the New York Times guy. I tell you what, I think Comey was lying to the IG about what he knew about the documents, how he treated them, and whether he understood them to be government documents or not. No sensible person, especially someone in his position, could fairly say these were his personal records. He was asked by the IG, well, how could you think this is a personal memo when you're sitting at a meeting, having dinner, talking about government business? He says, well, I was there as an FBI director and as a human being.
Yeah.
That's dishonest. To me, those are the sorts of false statements of which he could have been prosecuted.
Yes.
Yeah. Which doesn't give me hope for these other IG reports coming out that any of these people are going to be held accountable. I mean, are you excited about the rest of the reports to come out? If we know that there's been lying and there's been no prosecution for any of that?
Well, I'm a kind of an information nerd, so I'm always excited when new information comes out. There's new information here confirming what we've disclosed in some regards. But I would be shocked if they pursue charges, given their failure to pursue charges not only Comey, the reported agonizing over the other criminal referral on Andrew McCabe in April of last year. They still haven't charged him over the false statements he allegedly made. So we've had the criminal referral to this Justice Department on James Comey and Andrew McCabe. Comey thus far has gotten a pass. McCabe, evidently they're nervous that they're Democratic juries in D.C., so they can't pursue a case. Boy, if that's the standard, there'll never be a prosecution because of any alleged Democrat, because of the so-called jury pool here in D.C. Frankly, it's not my experience that juries in D.C. are as crazy and political and lawless as the Justice Department seems to think. So that seems to me like excuse-making. I agree with you, Mary. I'd be shocked if they pursue additional charges given their failure to pursue justice here, an inexcusable failure. If I were the president, I'd be suing Comey. I'd sue everybody because DOJ ain't going to do it. Frankly, you should maybe think about suing the FBI and DOJ over the violation of his rights.
The IG report says that Comey's closest advisors referred to their reactions as surprised, stunned, shocked, and disappointment when they learned what Comey had done. How much did James Comey damage the reputation of the FBI?
He was the worst FBI director in American history. It's pretty clear.
Above Hoover.
I think he was probably worse than Hoover. Hoover was operating in a very different milieu than Comey. Comey has no excuse. I mean, Hoover had been there for decades. He was there with the approval of several presidents. Obviously, there was misconduct, but that was kind of unfortunately some of the accepted norm. He operated so far outside the accepted norm since Hoover. There's simply no comparison in terms of recent FBI directors.
There are still several files to be declassified, several reports that people are talking about. There's 3 or 4 reports that people really want to see. They're currently classified. They want to see them declassified. If those are eventually declassified, and who knows if they will, is that going to change the narrative or change the road that it seems we're going down now?
Well, I think if there are going to be prosecutions, we have to have transparency, because that is going to, I think, increase the public pressure for full justice. We had these FBI 302s on Bruce Orr, that Comey's FBI was running Bruce Orr to be the conduit for information from the Clinton gang at Fusion GPS. That sort of information is devastating. So if we don't get that information out, it's less likely there'll be full accountability in terms of prosecutions.
So hopefully we will get those, and we'll see everything that's in there. Tom, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Because there's so much to talk about, and I feel like we could go another hour.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7:23 on WMAL.